Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a real, modern-day David versus Goliath story. We're pitting nimble, five-person American operations against those massive, legacy Fortune 500 corporate hierarchies to see exactly how artificial intelligence is totally dismantling the traditional advantage of scale. If you've ever found yourself wondering how these tiny American teams are suddenly out-executing global corporate giants, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's just jump right in.
So, let's kick things off with a number that honestly blew my mind. According to MIT's 2025 NANDA research, an unbelievable 95% of enterprise generative AI pilots completely failed to deliver a measurable return on investment. 95%. And look, this isn't just some small sample fluke. This data comes from hundreds of leadership interviews and looking at 300 public AI deployments. But, the real story here isn't just that failure rate. It's understanding why they're failing so spectacularly.
Here's the thing. The crucial point to understand is that the real failure isn't the AI models themselves. The tech is fine. The problem is the environment they're being forced into. Large organizations are basically trying to bolt this lightning-fast AI onto incredibly sluggish structures. The Fortune 500 side is stuck trying to adapt decades of legacy systems. They're wading through like 6-layer approval chains. And honestly, they're terrified of a failed pilot showing up in a quarterly board deck. Now compare that to a 5-person American startup. They have absolutely zero legacy workflows to protect. They just adopt a tool, test it out, and go, all while the corporate guys are still trying to book a conference room for their initial alignment meeting.
Which brings us to Section 1, the failing corporate moat.
MIT actually has a great name for this execution gap. They call it the Gen I divide. It's pretty straightforward. When companies just go out and buy specialized vendor tools, they succeed about 67% of the time. But when large companies try to build AI systems entirely in-house, usually because they're trying to protect their supposed corporate moat, they succeed only a third as often. The market is heavily penalizing companies that insist on reinventing the wheel.
And we're seeing this play out in the U.S. Federal Reserve's mid-2025 data too. For the very first time on record, we are looking at a total reversal in adoption rates. Small American businesses are now adopting AI faster than large firms. Get this, companies with 10 to 100 employees jumped from a 47% to a 68% adoption rate in just a single year. That's huge. Previously, large enterprises were leading this race at almost double the rate of small firms. The momentum has completely shifted.
Moving right along to Section 2, the arsenal. Let's look at the autonomous procurement bot.
Let's look at the actual real-world math of AI leverage here. A small company can use production platforms like Keelvar or Pactum to literally do the work of a massive corporate procurement department. Instead of spending weeks on manual effort, a single agentic platform can handle complex supplier negotiations up to 70% faster, and it actually delivers up to 8% in additional savings. Basically, a tiny business is renting a Fortune 500 procurement office for the cost of a monthly software subscription. It's a total game changer.
All right, Section 3, dismantling middle management with agentic workflows.
Think about what a typical middle manager actually does all week. A full 60% of their time is spent purely on reporting, coordinating, reviewing, and just translating information between different teams. Well, why does that matter? Because that is the exact category of work that large language model agents automate best. In fact, 2026 survey data is showing massive displacement specifically at this coordination level, simply because AI is faster and way more accurate at routing that information. And small teams are capitalizing on this through something called swarm intelligence. Frameworks like AutoGen use a multi-agent debate pattern. That means AI agents will actually critique and revise each other's work before a human ever even lays eyes on it. Or take a look at Crew AI, which deploys role-based crews. Imagine spinning up an AI researcher, an AI analyst, and an AI writer all working seamlessly together on a project. This completely replaces the coordination layer that a mid-sized company would normally pay a whole tier of management to execute.
Next up is Section 4, hyper-personalization at infinite scale. Now, if you're in outbound sales, this is wild. By using category-leading tools like Tavus and HeyGen, a single sales rep records just one base video. Just one. The AI platform then steps in and generates distinct, perfectly unique variants for every single prospect at a volume that no human team could ever match. It changes the prospect's name, their company, even specific details pulled from their recent public activity. Because this highly personalized video outreach converts so much higher than your standard generic email blasts, a 2-person sales team can now run a personalization motion that used to require an entire creative and marketing department.
But hey, a really crucial warning here. Skipping the legal and ethical disclosure that a video is AI generated, that is not some clever growth hack. Honestly, it's the fastest possible way to completely torch any trust you have with a prospect. The emerging 2026 standard demands explicit consent. Being transparent isn't just a legal thing, it's a critical business practice to maintain the trust you're working so hard to build in the first place.
Let's look at Section 5, Achieving Algorithmic Velocity.
5. That is the median number of AI tools a typical small business is now running across their entire operational stack. We're talking tools for content, customer service, scheduling, analytics, workflow automation, the whole shebang. That is the real algorithmic velocity advantage. They can adopt, test, misuse, fix, and re-adopt software in the time it takes a rigid corporation to simply schedule a meeting to ask for permission to do a pilot. Speed is absolutely the ultimate weapon right now.
Finally, Section 6, the honest AI limits.
Let's be totally clear to ground this a bit. None of these tools are out there making unsupervised, high-stakes decisions completely on their own. They all require guardrails. These are human-set boundaries, things like acceptable price floors, approved supplier lists, and hard limits on negotiation terms. The AI simply automates the repetitive execution inside those boundaries. Human judgment is and remains the ultimate safety net. Also, it's worth noting that this small beats big advantage isn't a permanent law of physics. Large companies can definitely close this gap quickly, provided they learn to buy proven tools rather than stubbornly trying to build them internally.
So, since MIT's data so clearly shows that the winning move is buying specialized tools rather than building internally, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question. Which of these specialized AI tools is already running in your company's operational stack right now? If your answer is none, well, it might be time to rethink how your team operates before a 5-person American startup comes along and does it for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.